Okay, so this is going to get us started in doing a walk cycle. First of all, when we're logging straight in to Harmony, just turn off your animation button, make sure you're in camera, there's a drawing layer, and remember that you need a model sheet to start off with for your character. I'm going to use Flintstone. So you can follow me as you like. Now I'm going to do this from right. Copy image and paste it in Toon Harmony. Now that layout by itself is easy to see, but we want to be able to draw on it. So I'm going to make it transparent so we can actually draw on it on a new layer and not have to worry about the outlines. So I'm just going to go 2 layers here, plus FX transparency, and you'll notice it fades out instantly because it's got an automatic setting of 50% transparency. If I open that up, I can reduce that down. It makes it more opaque, and if I increase it up, it makes it more transparent, with completely invisible at 100% and completely opaque at 0%. Okay, with it like that, I'm going to lock that layer and add a new drawing layer. Now I'm going to draw Wilma in several pieces, some parts one at a time, and some I'm going to draw from different versions of the model sheet. For instance, I like the side view of her body. We're going to do a sideways walk cycle, but the 3/4 head is probably more appropriate. Side view heads tend to be used only for transitional frames rather than seen as the side view all the time. Whenever you see the side view of a character who's moving along, they tend to be at the 3/4 angle. So I'm going to put the head at that angle. Right, so I'm going to use that head. I'm going to use these legs, and I may fiddle around with her arms from different versions as well. Now, let's see. I'm going to start in various layers. Oh, so the first layer I'm going to use Wilma underscore leg. Yeah. Oh. I'm going to add Wilma underscore body. Wilma underscore head. Wilma underscore arm. And I think the skirt should be separate. Wilma underscore skirt. And then close. Okay. Now I've put them all in my drawing layer there, so I'm going to drag that up and out. There we go. Just so the drawing layer itself is transparent. I'll draw each of these a little bit at a time, but at the moment I'm going to lock them and create just a new drawing layer, which I should have done earlier, just called rough, so I can work things out and enclose. Okay, so that rough layer, I'm just going to use it to cut and paste colors in and test things if necessary. We might not even touch it too much, but it's good to have it there. Right, so let's find a colour version of Wilma so I can grab her colours. Now, it would be good if I had actual, like the Pantone colour set for the character, but Wilma's a common enough character that we can find a good version of her colours. And notice there's discrepancies in her hair colour. If you're doing any other character, just try and find as accurate a colour as you possibly can. Right. Let's I think this one. Go with this one. So I'm going to copy image and paste it into the rough layer in my Toon file. Right, that's good. I'm going to create a new palette. So I'm going to add some new colours. Wilma. Okay, making sure you label. It's got a default. The default black is good because I'm going to use that as the lines. And then I'm just going to start adding colours. Now, firstly, I'm going to hit the plus, and I'm going to use the eyedropper and grab her hair. I can call it Wilma hair, but I'm already putting it in a sub palette, so you know, if I know that the hair is there, and I can actually copy these colours from other palettes to each and actually load them in and save them separately, so it's good to know when you're working on various files. So I'm going to go add a new one. I'm going to give her a skin colour, so eyedropper, drag that, skin, okay, add. I'm going to give her dress colour, which seems to be an off-white of sorts. So it's dress and plus, and I'll go for her lips is the last colour. Lips and then plus. Sorry. Let's have a look. I think that's good. That's our colours. That's what we want. We've got lines. We've got all the individual colours. Let's close that. And I can actually trash that last one because we don't need it. Delete. There we go. 4 colours. Nice and easy to go. So we'll get a palette, we've got a character, and a bunch of layers that we're going to set up. Right. Now, if you draw these all on the same layout, I'm going to show you how to cut and paste it. I'll do it with one part first, right? But if you do it in multiple parts, it's just a matter of going back and grabbing these parts individually. Right, so on the rough layer, here we go. My line, making sure my line size is reasonable enough. That looks good. Might zoom in. I'm going to turn my smoothing up, and I'm going to hit the pressure sensitivity, kicks in, and trace over the line. Now the smoothing is helping me out. If I didn't have smoothing, I'd be doing short stroke brushes to smooth out these lines. Remembering at the end of any drawing that you're doing to select everything and collapse it, but I'm not ready to do that yet. So now in a more complex character you'd have maybe a separate face layer broken up, or even the bun on its own. We're not going to worry too much about that at the moment. We're just going to create a simple basic walk cycle. And it's not going to be far off what Hanna-Barbera would have done, but in a more traditional sense back in the 60s and 70s. on that line. Try and get, hopefully smoothing kicks it in. There we go. And draw her face. Now the lips are a little bit thin, so I'll reduce my brush size a little and then go in and do them. Maintaining that brush. Yeah. And right. I don't need this little line here that's underneath the neck, so I'll get my eraser and do that. I might touch that back so that smooths it out. I am going to colour it in, but I need to close this gap here. Okay? With that gap, it's just a matter of, remember, going into stroke, okay, and when I lay a stroke across, I have to press K so it shows the stroke lines on these shapes. So I'm going to draw across. And you notice the two squares are green, meaning they're touching on those edges, which is kind of vital because you don't want colour leaking out. So with my skin colour, changing it to the paint bucket and selecting. Okay, lines for the, yeah. Do the inside. No, I don't want to do the inside of the mouth. I might check the inside of the mouth before I do anything with that. And lips and hair. Right, I think I need some sort of inside of the mouth colour, so I'm going to add that and just adjust it. It should be a purple pinky colour. Dark. If you can really see the tongue, it might be pink, but at the moment we just want to create that gap. Yep, that's good. And I might also add a grey, just in case I need one. Remember, HSV values will give you colour, which is set to 0 saturation, and at 0 on this side, 100 on that side, 0, and I'll set it to V50, 50% grey, and I'm just going to call that grey. I might use it to do some small little breakup lines later, so I'm going to close that. Right, and the mouth name, I know I'm being pedantic, but it doesn't have a capital like the others. Pays to be consistent. Right, so my head is not on the right layer. It's on my rough layer, and that's the big problem I was talking about. So if you've drawn it on the wrong layer, you can just check it. Alright, so I'm going to unlock the layer that it's supposed to go on, Wilma head, right, and I'm going to use the black selection tool, lasso around, okay, Control X, Wilma head, layer, and Control V, and you notice it appears as the first frame. Now it says there's something else on that layer, but it's just a blank drawing because we've taken everything else out of that. Now we could go through the process of deleting it, but it's not hurting us at the moment. It's not using up any enough memory space to start slowing things down, so I'm going to stick with that. The other thing I'm going to grab from this layer is Wilma's arm, because I like that nice back curve at the back of her arm and the straight pose on the hand. I might grab the other arm, but I'm not so sure. I'll see how I go. Let's brush, lines, and I've just done that on the rough layer. Undo. Lock the layer, lock Wilma head, Wilma arm. There we go. Over select it. Increase my brush size back up. Too much. Too much. There we go. Done. Once again, I'll use stroke to close up that area, and I'll paint it with the brush, with the bucket. There we go. So that's Wilma's arm on the Wilma arm layer. Okay. Alright, so the other parts of the body I'm going to actually grab from the side view. So I'm going to slide across. Notice how I'm only doing one arm at the moment and one leg. In fact, let's do that leg. Now, the leg is behind the skirt. It actually goes up to her hips here. So I'm going to sort of project where that shape ends. So there we go. We need to zoom in to get the toes. It's good enough shape. It's closed already. That line's going to be hidden behind the skirt, so good. And skin. There. Great. I'll have to juggle some of these layers around. So lock that layer onto the body. Oh yes, I'm going to create a new layer for the necklace as well. I'll get to that when I'm done with the rest of it. So, on this body, lines, make sure you're on the right layer. Notice I've not grabbed the arm, okay, I'm not extending it past the waist there. I'm going up to the neck, following that one line, that neck, down around her curves to the hips. And then I'm just going to project the line that goes behind. There we go. Okay. The reason I'm going to add the necklace as its own shape is because I might want to keep it, give it some jiggle or bounce it around as she's moving along. Like I said, you could get more complex by adding extra things, but I think the necklace is a good potential starting point, and I'll decide whether I want to animate it as I go. Right, so body's not done. I've got to stroke. Yep, zoomed in there. That's Wacom edges. Notice I'm extending down, and I'll extend up as well here. Okay, skin, paint bucket, dress. Okay. That's great. Those body parts seem transparent. Oh, it's because I've locked them. Right, so body, leg, arm. What am I missing? The skirt and the necklace. So I'm going to go skirt and lock that layer. Right, black. And I'm actually going to undo that. And use the unlock that. Now, if I put the skirt on top, I actually have to allow for a space to fit the body. If I put the skirt below the body, I've actually allowed for that overlap, so I can actually continue that line through. And I might do that, okay? Because what that does is allows me to move the body over the top, right? And as long as I keep those 2 points registered, we'll see the gap where Wilma's body extends from the skirt area. There we go. Right, I was going to add one more layer, which was the necklace, so I'll do that. And just over the camera. There we go, drawing. Wilma underscore yeah. I think that's good. Right. So with Wilma's necklace, I'll lock the skirt layer, change back to the line colour, and zoom in and draw the necklace. I do need to change to the brush tool. Now I've got some lines here representing the shadow shape of these things. I'm going to use the grey for that rather than black. Just go paint bucket, paint bucket, paint bucket, and grey. I'm just going to go in there and draw like a sort of shadow in there. The only real bit of shadow in her body, so I could technically go in and create shadows as if I wanted, but since there's no real plan to do it, let's keep Wilma as mostly flat. Okay, so Wilma's necklace. And we've got the skirt. All of this looks to be fine. That because there's nothing on that layer anymore. Delete the rough, and I'm actually going to delete the model sheet or hide it. Yeah, let's delete it. I can always bring it back as necessary, but for some reason it was showing up the transparency of my layers. Now I have to get all my layers in the right order. Remember, the skirt is going to go underneath the body, but above the leg. There we go. The body, okay, head is to be on top. Okay. Is there, and necklace That looks right. Okay, let me put Wilma together. So I'm just going to use the black selection tool, actually transform tool, without animation turned on. So Wilma head. These are the pivot points over here. Then I'm going to go transform to horizontal. It's not going to let me, is it? Why are you not letting me? Don't have that layer selected. Try. No. Heads on backwards. The arm. Also. I have the layer unlocked. We'll be moving our peg pivots anyway, but I just want to put this in the right spot. Yep, that looks right. Now one leg, and that looks like all the body parts in the right sections. Let's unlock our layers, select them, and add pegs. And you'll notice it creates a peg for each layer. That's fine. At the moment they're -Ps, which means peg layer. It does that by default. You might want to go and rename yours pegs. I sometimes like the clarity of seeing pegs, but -P will do us at the moment. Okay. Remembering when we move our pivots for our pegs back to where they're supposed to be, we need to first of all select the peg layer. Just the translate tool, and I click on the dot itself. You'll notice there's a little P that pops up. If I click on either of the arrows, it moves the object. Or if I click anywhere, it moves the object. If I click on the dot, I can actually move the pivot. And I might pivot it on the back of her neck. Sort of like the nape of her neck, where the weight of the necklace sits. Yeah, it's good. So the arm is the next pivot. Okay, hover, bring it. Okay, now I'm not too sure about this one, so I'll just check it. That looks good. Okay, next one is the head. Once again, change to the and the head. To the body. Now, the pivot point of the body is actually here at the hip level, so I'm going to move that down here. And if you're not sure or don't understand why, when I rotate this body around, okay, it will sit on the outside. Okay, and I can have a little bit of up and down movement, but generally I'm controlling it from the hip itself. Yeah. She does have like an awkward pose. When with skirt, pivot will be in exactly the same spot. So let's do that. pivot. Actually, I need to use that one. Pivot control. Okay, Wilma's skirt and Wilma's leg, which is at the top of the leg. Now I need to see where the top of the leg is. So let's turn off the skirt. There it is. Okay. Wilma's leg peg. Drag it down and there we go. So it's just below the hip one anyway, which is where a leg pivot should be, really. Turn it back on. Okay. And I think we've got our body parts all ready to go. I'm going to lock all the layers except the leg, because it's going to be the first part that we add bones to. Select the leg layer. Now, my walk cycle is going to be 25 frames long, so I'm going to get that ready now. Drop it down. And go to the last frame and press F5. Remember, we extend out our frames by pressing F5. Technically, I could do that to all of them, and I might do it now, but I'm going to actually bone the legs by themselves before I do anything else. So I'm going to select the leg, making sure it's unlocked. Okay. Notice the pivots there in that original spot. I can actually go to my peg, and that's where it is. Rotation should happen from that peg, at least as a final result. We might adjust the leg parts here. So I'm going to go on to our rigging tool. Okay, I need to select the there we go. Rigging tool and transparency on that skirt so I can see. There we go. So from the top pivot point to the knee, just below the skirt level, to the ankle, to the ball of the foot, to the toe. Okay, so there's 4 bones there. Boom, 1, 2, 3. Okay, it's labeling them automatically, and what that does, as long as your envelopes are set up and you've set it on a locked layer, if I go to my transform tool, right, notice it highlights green, and I can now tweak. Okay, just be careful about how you grab these bones, because you can actually grab and stretch. Okay, which can look wacky, and you can do all sorts of stretch animation for it, but at the moment we just want to get the rotations, because arcs and rotations are key to animators. There we go. So that seems fine. I'm going to do the same thing to the shoulder, so let's close that. Skirt. Arm. There we go. Okay. And selecting that layer. One more arm layer. Shoulder. Elbow. Wrist. Fingers are a little bit spread out to start worrying about individual bones there, but I'm going to reduce the size of that so it's only flexing around the wrist, and that's fine. Once again, I can check that. Nice. Adjustments here if I like. Okay. The next bone we're going to add is the body. So lock the layer, unlock the body. Actually, I'll hide the skirt still. So body, body. I'm going to go halfway up to the neck, just in case we need it, to the head. And I'm going to go actually up the top of the head, because we're going to create a control point. I'm not going to add a bone to the head. I'm going to make the head part of the body bone system. Okay. It's cool. And I think that's our bones. Let's get that. Okay, yeah, it's all looking alright. And if I go to transform, I can actually stretch the body. Oh, I might need to adjust the thickness of that envelope there. So I'm going to go up to that. Red edit mode. And green tests. And oh. Yep, that looks good. Okay. Now, I do want Wilma's head attached to that bone, so I need to find out where that bone is. I know bone 10 is probably the last bone. Okay, so it means that Wilma's head peg has to actually float inside there. So unlock it and drop it down under. But I don't want any distortion to happen. If I move it, you'll notice there's distortion there because it's being affected by the body envelopes. Okay, so I'll select Wilma's peg there, and I'll add a kinematic output. And the kinematic output just says use the bone to control the motion of this, but don't adjust any of the shape. Okay, and with that bone, I can select it and test it. There we go. Wilma's bone. And you know, if I need to adjust it so the lines fit up, I can. That's why I added an extra neck joint. It's great. That's looking like my bone system's alright. Now, I'm going to find out what that bone is. Bone is. Okay, so bone 10 is the head, bone 9 is the neck, okay, bone 8 is everything up to the shoulders. So I want to add the arm into there. So I'm going to drag that down. Bone 9. Okay. Notice it moved the bone down all over the place. I want to avoid that. I actually want to add a kinematic output. Puts the bone back where it was. So the arm has its own bone system, but it's being controlled by this body bone to move it. For instance, this. There we go. And notice the shoulder. And I can move the arm and hand independently of that, but it's still following the shoulder. Okay, the necklace. I want to sit on the same bone, I think, under the same kinematic output. So let's grab that, lock it, and drop it there. Kinematic output, there's the necklace, there's the arm. I might duplicate the arm and adjust them. I think that's probably a good idea. But and the leg. Now, the leg is potentially problematic if I move that top bone there, right? It will affect the leg and it'll make it swing around. So what I want to do is actually attach the leg peg to the body peg. So let's do that. So, and all my layers are getting really complex. Stretched out so you can see. So the leg, the reason I'm adding the leg into the peg for the body is so that I can pick up the whole thing from the hip. Okay, so bone 7 is our leg. Right, need to find that leg. I'm going to drop it under bone 7. No, under the body peg. So it has its own peg, and you notice instantly it jumps forward. Well, that's what the top view is for. Okay, my window is really, really small, so which is pretty sad, but okay, that leg selected, I'm going to maintain size as it scales. I'm just going to use the move tool to move it back. There we go. Hopefully not too far, because I want it to sit behind. I also want to duplicate this because I want to add an extra bone in. So I'm going to add duplicate. Selected layers. I'm making sure it's collapsed so it copies all the bones as well. Duplicate selected layers. There we go. You notice it's created an underscore P1 and a P underscore 1 and the original P peg. Okay. Now if I lock that layer, in fact if I lock all the other layers, and I use the P1 and just move it, you notice I can bring that forward. I'm going to do that and actually scale it down ever so slightly, like a teensy tiny bit, just so it sits back. Not enough to be noticeable, but enough to just make you think, okay, that leg might be behind the other one. And because it's duplicated, it'll sit in the same top view frame. Okay, that's all looking alright. I think we're in good shape. Right, the arm. Let's find where that arm is. So our head, kinematic output for the arm. Okay, I unlock the leg layers, unlock the arm, and I want to right click, duplicate, select layers. This is giving us our second arm. Now if I move this out now, I can transpose it, I suppose. Okay. I'm going to try and transform. It's not going to let me. That's unfortunate. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to flip it manually. Okay, so I got one hand slightly pointing forward, one hand pointing back. I didn't want to grab the peg there. Okay. Just doing this by eye. I think that works. Now I need to put it in a low layer, so I'm going to use the top view. works. So I've got a full bone system for my character now. Okay, so in attaching various parts, I've used kinematic outputs, I've used bones, and I've used pegs to control. So there's multiple things going on, and we can actually have a character that's ready to animate. So video 2 will all be about the beginnings of animating our walk cycle. Okay, let's see you then.